The opening words will be read by Diane DeMarco.
As we come together in community in this virtual space, we are very aware of all which we have had to let go, not the least of which, at the most basic level, coming into physical presence with one another. As we light our own candles, if we choose to represent the chalice of our community, we are mindful of the sacred time of coming together on our shared journey of discovery of that which remains essential after we have had to let go of so much.
I will light a chalice here in my home. I invite you, if you are able, to light your own chalice and place it where it can be seen by all of us. These words are by Nancy Reed McKee. Our community knows no boundaries. We are not confined by the physical limits of walls or, for that matter, of what often binds us, restricts us, holds us back. We are freer than we know when we release ourselves and each other from expectations of what is needed for true community. We are here together in space. I see you, I hear you, I love you. And I light this chalice, a beacon of this community, holding us all together here now. Before we sing the first hymn, let me remind you to leave yourselves muted. However, we want you and whoever is with you to sing with Jan as big and loud as you like. Make it a joyous experience. So let's all sing the opening hymn, number 347, Gather the Spirit.
Gather the Spirit. I don't know if I have sound, Andy.
We hear you, yes.
Let me know if it doesn't work. We hear you, yes. Okay. Gather the Spirit, harvest the power. Our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour. Our trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Jan. If you could mute yourself. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist community of Cambria. We're glad you have joined us today as we gather virtually for a special service, sharing community that knows no boundaries, here in the present as well as the past. We acknowledge that our UUCC sanctuary stands on lands that were originally and continue to be occupied by coastal Chumash indigenous peoples, whose ancestors lived primarily in the San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. As a Unitarian Universalist community, we celebrate religious diversity and welcome all who journey in search of faith and spirituality. The UUCC is a lay-led congregation inviting speakers from different religious traditions and spiritual or scientific backgrounds to speak at our pulpit. We encourage presentations covering a variety of topics and areas of interest to our community that connect with the UU7 principles. Today's service centers around the third principle. We affirm and promote acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Spiritual growth isn't about a vertical ascent to heaven, but about growth in every dimension at once. It's spirituality in 3D. Growth in spirit doesn't measure one's proximity to a heaven above, but rather the spaciousness of one's own soul, its volume, its capacity, its size. We need souls that can take in the world in all its complexity and diversity, yet still maintain our integrity. And we need souls that can love and be in relationship with all of this complexity. Instead of fight or flight, we need a spiritual posture of embrace. My name is Andy Fagan, and I am your worship associate this morning. I'd like to extend a special welcome to today's guests and visitors. We're glad you joined us this morning. If you're not on our mailing list, please visit our website at www.uuccambria.org so that we can keep you informed about all of our activities. And please check out What's Happening, a weekly e-blast sent to all our members and friends. This is a great way to keep up with the latest news in our community. As a reminder, if you wish to see this or any of our past Zoom services again, recordings of these services can be found on the UUCC website and Facebook as well. The membership committee invites non-members to consider joining our community. Please contact Janet Cooper or a person on the board if you're interested. Thank you. So again, good morning and welcome to everyone. Each Sunday, we recite an affirmation, which is both a recognition of the nature of our community, as well as a promise we make and aspire to. Now let us recite the affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another. We set aside this time for any short announcements that would be of interest to our UU community members and friends. Please keep all your items short and to the point. For any items that need more explanation, please call or email the person after the service to be respectful of everyone's time. If you have an announcement, please raise your Zoom hand by clicking on the raise hand button. When Diane calls your name, please unmute yourself and then speak.
Okay, any announcements out there today? Well, I have one that I'd like to make, has to do with the auction. So due to vacations still in progress, we are moving the auction date to October 16th, which is a Saturday. And right now the plan will probably be to have it on Zoom, but we don't really know that yet. So please save any like new items of jewelry or paintings or ceramics or musical instruments, small furniture items, plants, tchotchkes that you think would be appealing to others. And also we're asking you to consider a service such as baking cookies or cakes or candies or cooking meals or dinners, or knitting or crocheting or beading or creating your own work of art. You may want to lead a hike or take a group on a tour to secondhand stores, or have a game night or a night of magic, or give art or singing or French or gymnastic lessons. Anybody up for a gymnastic lesson? I'm not sure who to see for that, but can be arranged. Or juggling. Your personal talents and gifts are great ways to help our church meet its budget needs. So think about it. What could you do to contribute? And we'll keep you posted. Well, it looks like that's the only announcement for today. Back to you, Andy.
Thanks, Diane. It's that summer quiet time. But next week, we begin our Summer Sermons by Other People series with Rebecca Hendricks presenting a talk by Darian Farrow entitled Being Useful. Sharing together some of our personal and significant joys and concerns brings us closer as a faith community. We invite you to share the milestones that are deeply felt as a part of your personal life, but please be mindful and considerate of all who come to worship this morning. This is a time of community building. The collective flames of these candles embody all the joys and sorrows which may have gone unspoken today, but are deeply felt in this community.
Our first reading is by Richard Rohr. How am I ready to surrender? I believe profoundly in the necessity of surrender, but I don't think we can chart its course ahead of time. Our own private salvation projects seldom do the job. Surrender is something that is done to us more than something we do to ourselves. In Joseph Campbell's book, On the Hero's Journey, he says that the only way to be a hero is to prepare and be ready for when the moment comes. You might say that is the point of all spirituality. Someone else must determine the timing, the circumstances, the shape of the ordeal. None of us can engineer our own transformation, or it would not be transformation at all, but merely cosmetic surgery to make us think well of ourselves. You can't choose ahead of time which dragon you'll slay or how you will slay it. It will probably slay you. So just make sure you are well practiced in dying.
Let us now enter a place of peace and serenity where you are one with your spiritual being. Be at peace within your space where the absence of all that is temporal is its most cherished gift. Let us enter the stillness. please come back now?
This is a poem by Mary Oliver called In Blackwater Woods. Look, the trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds. And every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this, the fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it. And when the time comes to let it go, to let it go.
The anthem today is Here's to Life by Artie Butler and Phyllis Molinari, and will be sung by Jan Coleman.
No complaints and no regrets. I still believe in chasing dreams and placing bets. For I have learned that all you give is all you get. So you give it all you've got. I've had my share, I drank my fill, and even though I'm satisfied, I'm hungry still to see what's down the other road, beyond the hill, and do it all again. So here's to life and every joy it brings. Here's to life, to dreamers and their dreams. Funny how the time just flies. I still believe in warm hellos and sad goodbyes, and leave you with the memories you memorize to keep your winters warm. For there's no yes in yesterdays, and who knows what tomorrow brings or takes away. As long as I'm still in the game, I'm gonna play and do it all for love. So here's to life and every joy it brings. Here's to life, to dreamers and their dreams. May all your storms be weathered and all that's good get better. Here's to life, here's to love, and here's to you. Here's to life, here's to love, and here's to you.
Thank you, Jan. And Diane, if you could unspotlight Jan now, I think I spotlighted her. Remove spotlight. Okay. So,
Today's sermon
sorry.
is titled Loss, Holding On, and Letting Go, to be delivered by Michael Esselin. Michael Esselin serves as the chaplain for the Simsman UCLA Center for Integrative Oncology. Two-time TEDx speaker, Michael speaks extensively to healthcare professionals, patient populations, and faith communities across the country. He's also worked as an active educator, addressing anti-LGBTQ bias in the larger community for over 30 years. Michael was recently inducted into the UCLA Semel Institute Eudaimonia Society in recognition of having lived a meaning-driven life. He has 4 volumes of CDs available for purchase. Contact Michael Esselin through his website, www.michaelesselin.com. And now, Michael Esselin.
Good morning. The well-known Buddhist author and teacher Pema Chodron offers us this in her book, When Things Fall Apart. I used to have a sign pinned to my wall that read, "Only to the extent that we expose ourselves over and over to annihilation can that which is indestructible be found in us." It was all about letting go of everything. I invite you to think about 4 or 5 things that make you who you are, that if anyone's going to know you at all, they're going to know these 4 or 5 things about you, that you're a talented artist, you're a gifted athlete, you're passionate about politics or your faith community, you're a devoted grandparent. Maybe you're known for your beautiful physique and your great head of hair. That would be me. Imagine none of that is true anymore, or not in the same way. Who would you even be then? Is there an essential you who dwells beneath all those labels to which we would attach ourselves, all those hats we might wear? What's more, is he or she worthy of love? Is he or she capable of giving love? As painful as it may be to pursue those questions, they do reflect the most profound spiritual journey through loss, toward essence, if you will, that which is indestructible. It's a journey that so many cancer patients must take in a compressed, accelerated kind of fashion, watching piece by piece of one's identity slip away. If I'm no longer the super mom who never misses a soccer game or a birthday party, who would I even be then? Would I even still be the mom? The thing is, it's a journey we all must take. Life affords us each that guarantee that we will all lose everything, everything that we are, everything that we have, everything that we love. How do we make peace with that? Is it even possible? I sometimes wonder if one key to living a successful life dwells within our capacity to come to peace with the inevitability of loss. What's more, might that peace even be a kind of gift, a blessing, giving us a glimpse every now and then of that which is indestructible? The Buddhists would caution us against grasping, holding on, to be well practiced at letting go, that reaching, grasping, clinging are sure pathways to suffering. As an illustration, we only have to look at how so many of us are coping with this unfolding pandemic. How long is this going to go on? I just want my old life back. When can we get back to normal? I'm an avid swimmer. I swim every day. I remember a year ago, last March, when my gym announced that because of the virus, they would be closing for up to 2 weeks. 2 weeks? I can't live without the pool for 2 weeks. Oh, really? Just wait. I hear similar sentiments sometimes from newly diagnosed cancer patients. I just want my old life back. Can't we just go back to 5 weeks ago before all this ever happened? There's a kind of paradox, I think, that while, yes, holding on can lead to suffering, I find there's also life force in it, in the reaching, in the yearning, in the striving. Chemo infusion clinics are filled with folks who have signed up for guaranteed suffering for the possibility of more time, more life. Universities are filled with students investing in, striving for, creating a future. When we're young, the future is almost a member of the family, a character in our own biography. Look at how much attention and intention we invest in the future. It shapes almost every decision we make. As we get older, possibility diminishes right along with the future. And the past becomes a far richer member of the family. Memories, stories that can soothe us, bring us peace, stories that help us explain ourselves to ourselves, or stories that might just as soon haunt us. But either way, stories that offer the possibility of meaning. In the saddest irony of all, some of us will even lose those in time. How do we make peace with that? Is there any meaning at all to be found in all that we will lose? I'm not so arrogant as to think I have any answers at all. What I have are stories, both my own and those of countless patients I've walked beside, patients whom I would just as soon call my teachers. And I also have a growing faith at this stage of my life that growing closer, drawing closer toward any paradox, holding the space for two competing realities to be true, might just offer a pathway to peace, if not wisdom. April was a great gal, mid-40s, vibrant, professional, a wife, a mom, two great kids. She had this exceedingly rare, exceedingly lethal cancer diagnosis that also happened to be horribly disfiguring. The doctors gave her that awful assessment, nothing more to be done. She greeted that news with this kind of clarity and profundity. Michael, I'm dying. I know that. It's the truth. But you know what? It's only one truth of many truths. Her openness to that statement, her willingness for it to shape the remainder of her days, was truly something to behold. And there are those who cling so valiantly to those one or two aspects of one's identity that without them, life simply wouldn't be worth living. That clinging actually keeps them going. There's the passionate college professor who, by any reasonable standard, should never have been in a classroom, given how immunocompromised she was and how weak and frail she was. But even her oncologist saw the truth of her situation. I see this is who you are. You've got to be a teacher. So go teach. Just be careful. Okay? I remember years ago meeting a young woman, a young mother in her 30s in the hospital, not long before she died. At the time I met her, she was busy keeping a journal, writing letters to her then 13-year-old daughter to be read well into the future. Oh, that's so beautiful, I said. I'm glad you're doing it. No, it's not, she said. I'm just nagging her into the future. Still just being a mom to the very end. Sometimes it might even be an object that we cling to with such defiance as some kind of touchstone, some remnant of this identity we just can't release. Maybe an old army uniform, maybe an old wedding dress, maybe an old ID badge from a long gone career. Over the last few years of my mom's life, she was acutely aware that things would be wrapping up soon. And so she took to earnestly cleaning out, clearing away every drawer, cabinet, closet in her house, letting go so we wouldn't have to. When death finally came, things had been pretty much sifted down to the bare essentials, except for boxes and boxes, acres and acres of family photos, cards, letters, a few tattered newspapers with historic headlines, JFK assassinated, that sort of thing. That last Saturday that we were packing up what was left of my mom's life, I made a final pass through her bedroom closet, and in the darkness, high in the corner on the top shelf, I saw this dusty old hat box. How had we missed that? I pulled it out and opened it up. I couldn't believe my eyes. And I felt this searing stab of grief and of wonder. It was the hat, this hat that had become legendary in my memory. Her Donna Reed hat, I called it. She looked just like her when she wore it. It was a little pillbox covered in champagne silk leaves, each one tipped with a little seed pearl. She bought the hat, I remember, to go with a light blue brocade suit that she would wear to her best friend Janet's second wedding in Las Vegas, maybe 1962 or so. My mom was quite the glamorous dresser in her day. Earlier that afternoon, in fact, we had come upon the photo of the wedding party in the original folder from the Desert Inn. There my mom and dad were seated at the table, looking so young, so handsome, so beautiful. I also knew that under the table were the most stunning pair of gold lame pointed toe stiletto pumps. I had always been fascinated with my mom's high heels, obsessed, really. Even I knew better than to mess with those. But here it was, the hat. She had kept it. We had reminisced often about those years, even about that outfit, but she never let on that she had kept the hat. For decades and decades and decades, after letting go, saying goodbye to everything and everyone else, she kept that hat. Why? Did she need it as some kind of touchstone, as proof that that time was real, that that aspect of her was still true? Unwilling to surrender this last souvenir. It leads me to wonder, what object will I cling to for no sensible reason, as some kind of placeholder for some version of myself I will always want to claim as true, as a part of me? I don't know. David Foster Wallace says that everything I let go of has my claw marks on it. And there are those who adapt quite well to loss, adapting to a new identity or a new version of the old one. Randy was a great guy in his mid-50s, had very advanced colon cancer. I had so many wonderful conversations with him over the last couple of years of his life. Not long before he died, I was walking him out of the clinic and we were still chatting when we got out in the hallway. Up walks another patient, gingerly making her way to the entrance of the clinic. She's on a walker. Randy says, "Just a minute, Michael." And he goes and he holds the door for her with a big smile on his face. "There you go, sweetheart." And he came back to me and he said, "You see there, Michael, the way I see it, that's my job now, to be kind. That's what I do." Now, cancer had robbed him of so much, but it hadn't taken away that career opportunity. He had been in a career that was animated by struggle and competition, commercial real estate. It had all been refined and distilled now down to one who shows kindness. That's what he does. Cancer did not take away that opportunity. It didn't take away that place to still find meaning. Kate, in her early 60s, was diagnosed with a recurrence of breast cancer, now stage 4. She was a spiritual seeker, an artist, a musician. She played cello in a local chamber orchestra. While raised an Episcopalian, she converted to Judaism much later in life, but not because of marriage or some such conventional reason, but because she said, "I love the humor in Judaism. And besides, there's no hell." She also loved the questioning nature inherent in Jewish study. Although any articulation about who or what is God, how does prayer work, what happens after we die, was simply left undefined, because she experienced her spirituality in community, playing music in community, praying in community. She didn't pray when she was alone. She also shared with me that she had been a survivor of childhood sexual assault, an experience that left deep wounds, to be sure, but not the least of which was a crippling fear of dying. And the essence of that fear, Michael, what if I just disappear? There it is, ultimate loss, disappearance. I asked Kate if she'd ever had what any of us might call a peak spiritual experience. Oh, yes, she said, playing a big, lush piece of music like Handel's Messiah. I got to play that once in Cleveland, full chorus orchestra, the works. It was transcendent to be in the center of the creation of all of that music. Kate, you just told me that your biggest fear was that you would disappear. And yet your peak spiritual experience was one in which you disappear, if you will, into the creation of that music. It can't possibly be about you and your cello. And yet without that cello, the music would not have been the same. What if dying is like that? What if the other side is like that? Surrendering into this larger harmonic reality in which our voice is an inextricable piece of the whole. She sighed into that. She exhaled into that. Sometimes we might need to just summon our imagination to come up with new metaphors, new images, when the fear of loss can just be immobilizing. I love to hike. And for decades, I have made a nearly annual pilgrimage to Yosemite because there's one hike there that has simply given me my life back. More times than I can count. There's no other way to put it. Often times of great distress. About a dozen years ago, I came upon such a time. Devastation, really. A spiritual crisis, in fact, which I would define as a time of great loss. Everything that I had believed in and trusted collapsed right out from under me. At first, I thought maybe I ought to go to Yosemite, do that hike, try to climb out of it, transcend it. But it just didn't feel right. The more I thought, you've always wanted to go to the Grand Canyon, hike to the bottom, never seen it, not getting any younger. What if I were to climb down into the sorrow, into the pain, into the earth, rather than try to climb out of it, see what might be there for me? So that's what I did. For any of you that have ever made that descent, you know how staggering it is. And the wisdom that came to me was so clear, clean, precise. The Grand Canyon is only grand because of what's been lost, not because of one thing that's been added, one particle of soil at a time, letting go, releasing itself to the water over the span of 5 million years, incomprehensible, swept away by something so simple as water. I spent that night at the Phantom Ranch at the bottom of the canyon. It's a charming, historic, albeit Spartan compound, dormitory-like cabins, communal dining room. That night, the lovely fellow who served us dinner asked for our attention before we dug in. He wanted to offer some kind of blessing or invocation. My friends, I want to welcome you here. And while you're here, I hope you take time to be still, be quiet, and feel the power of this place, the sacredness of it, the majesty of it. It's like Jerusalem or Mecca for the native people. He went on to say, and no matter how hard it was for you to hike down here today, hiking up tomorrow is going to be so much easier. And of course, there were incredulous groans from around the table. Yeah, right. And if not, he said, rejoice, rejoice, you got no choice. I love that. I come back to it again and again as a kind of mantra. Rejoice, rejoice, you got no choice. What if, like the Grand Canyon, we are being carved out for our grandeur, hollowed out by loss, so that on our descent we might catch a glimpse of that which is indestructible. Sure, let's savor each vista, cherish each moment, hold on, you bet. But with the lightest touch and a willingness at any moment to let go. Except perhaps for that one thing. So be it.
So our thanks to Michael Esselin. We are so fortunate that he's part of our extended community, and the worship committee felt that his message was worthy of sharing once again. I hope you all agree.
Today's sermon is
But
titled
we don't need to do it again. So let me try and get us back. There we go. Okay. Normally at this time, we receive offerings from our congregants. However, due to the virtual format of this service, we invite you to make your offering in one of the methods shown on the screen. These methods are posted in the newsletter and on the UUC website. Please keep in mind that our congregation is entirely self-governed by the democratic process. One of the privileges of our Free Church tradition is to provide all of the financial support for our many ministries from among ourselves. Generosity, therefore, is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our personal and our institutional well-being. You are invited to participate in the blessing of giving by sending an offering. Thank you. Our thanks for all the gifts given and received for the work of this community. And now let us sing the doxology.
From all that dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every tongue.
Please join in singing the closing hymn, I Am Willing, by Holly Neer.
For those of you looking at the music, don't be disconcerted. I'm playing it a fourth higher than it's written, so you're not crazy. I am. I am open and I am willing
Thank you, Jan. Now let us recite the valediction. We extinguish the flame of this chalice, and we know that the light of love and the warmth of this community go with us until we meet again. Please extinguish your chalice at home now. Michael will give the benediction to conclude our service.
I invite us to perhaps close our eyes right now, and let's take a few nice deep breaths together. Breathing in the love, the intention, the commitment of this community to come together and connect despite all that there is now to separate us physically. As we exhale, can we release the light and the radiance of our coming together, not only back to one another, but to the larger circles of life? Let's even stretch our arms out right now where you are and imagine our embrace of each other and those larger circles of life, getting a sense of our connectedness in a place beyond time and space, despite the physical isolation of this moment. As we breathe into that embrace, can we also embrace that part of us that really wished for something else, something other than what we've got? That part of us that does not want to let go. Can we extend tender compassion to that part of ourselves, even as life pulls much that we may love from our grasp? May we find peace in that delicate balance between holding on and letting go. So be it.